Welcome back everyone. As you probably guessed from the title of the video, this is what we're going over today. These two red dots here from the folks over at Vortex Optics. I've had these in since these were announced, so I guess basically a year now, and have been running them on a ton of different guns. We have easily thousands of rounds through both of them. So what the heck are they? Well, they are open emitter, pistol-oriented red dots. We'll talk about that later. You can use them on other things as well. But this is the Vortex Defender ST. Both of these use the Delta Point footprint, so widely available in terms of different optics that are direct milled as well as plate systems. They do come with a plate for the Glock MOS system, but they both have top-mounted batteries, which certainly is nice. You don't have to take the optics off the gun to change the batteries when you need to do that, which is not very frequent, which we will get into here a little bit later on. This one here is more RMR size, if you will, and then this one here is more RMR HD size, if you will, or Holosun 507 comp, which it definitely gets compared to as well a lot. But this is that large window type of optic, and this one is more traditional, if you will, or do-use oriented, depending on how you view the things. But these come in a number of different MOA dots at this point. Back when I got them, they didn't, but now Vortex rather has expanded it to a number of different MOA for each of these, anywhere between like 2 rather, and up to 8 MOA. And they also come in both color dots, so you can get red or green, and then you can get them now finished in either black, like we have here with the anodized finish on there, or you can get them in FDE as well. So there's a lot going on there. Another thing we're going to talk about, of course, before we do the drop test, which we will be doing on this optic right here, stay tuned for that. But bodies themselves are made out of 7075 aluminum, which certainly is quite durable. They also have this little polymer reinforcement point there on the top for drop test type scenarios to sort of absorb the shock on there. And then they have checkering. They have a word for it. I don't know what the heck it is off the top of my head, but it's like checkering or like an aggressive texture built into the 7075 T6 aluminum there on the front of the housing. So that way it'll stick to whatever you're racking your optic off of, whether it be a boot, a belt, a table, etc. So I do think that is a pretty good design. So with that little overview out of the way, let's head out to the range and do a drop test on this guy, because in all seriousness, I don't think it's fair to do drop tests on large window optics like this, just like I didn't do it for the 507 comp. It's just almost impossible to make a large window open emitter dot pass a drop test. It just doesn't really happen. So let's do it with the Vortex ST here, Defender ST, which I think is probably the one that most people are going to be looking at for duty-oriented type of use anyway, and see how it holds up. Now it's the time of the video that I suppose many of you guys have been waiting for. We have the Defender ST mounted up here on the 19X. Hopefully that will show up. The glass there is perfectly fine, no damage at all. It has been rocking out as you would expect. We have a target downrange at 45 yards. I'm just going to verify 0, and then we're going to start dropping it. It's a little too bright right now. Sun went down. There we go. All right, we are zeroed. At least zeroed for YouTube anyway. All right, so we have the shootsteel.com target here. I am just a quarter of an inch under 6 feet since I shrunk since my last doctor's appointment. And we're going to drop it here on shoulder height onto the optic. Right now in the gun we have 12 rounds in the magazine, just for weight purposes. That one hit like a hammer. All right, absolutely no damage at all to the optic. We had hit right there on the front, the actual glass itself. Not sure if that's going to pick up or not, but it looks absolutely perfect. That was a brutal hit. Those are two of the most brutal hits I've done in my optics test. And we had a crack on the optic itself. I imagine you guys can probably see that right there in the corner. Also, you guys can probably see it there as well. The camera's not really going to focus correctly on the dot because it's an auto, but we have a crack there. However, it should be perfectly functional. That's my hope anyway. Because I like the optic and I want to keep using it. All right, let's see. Yep, perfectly usable, zeroed, everything. Should I drop it again? I know you want me to. We'll drop it again. That was not as bad in terms of the actual impact on the optic itself. Let me shut these cameras down here. And absolutely no additional damage at all to the glass. So it took that one like a champ. It was that second hit that really got it, but I think it's still perfectly fine. Yep, it's on. It's just fine. At this point, you probably want to engage with Vortex's warranty, but in terms of if that happened in the streets, if you will, you would be totally fine. Optic works as designed. With the drop test out of the way, we're going to talk about some of the features here on the XL and then move over to the ST. Most of them are the exact same. One big difference there with that battery compartment, but we have large buttons there on the side for up and down. These optics, the lowest two settings are their night vision compatible settings, which does work with night vision on the lowest setting is what my preference is anyway. The second setting is a little bit too bright for me for night vision, but it does work just fine. As you can see, this one here has the 5 MOA dot, but again, they come in a number of different sizes at this point. So whatever your fancy is, they probably have a dot size for you. We have the elevation adjustment there on the top, and then the windage is here on the side. As you guys can see, each click is going to be a 1 MOA click. So for most pistols, shotguns, things like that, it's going to be just fine. Or if you're using it as like an offset optic on a rifle, that's probably just fine. Probably not a big deal like we talked about there. Does have that delta point footprint on there, very, very common. So folks do dig that. Now for the battery compartment on this one, it actually is locked in place by this little lever right here. And you have to depress that little tab there to get it to open up. But it does take a CR2032 battery, so the most common out there. And it's going to give you up to 25,000 hours of battery life. Again, I've had mine in for over a year. Quite literally thousands of rounds on both of these different optics through it. The battery is just fine, and I've left it set at the visible setting that you would need to operate in bright sunlight like what we have out here today. You guys can probably see that at the top of your screen. It is bright out here. So just a quick size comparison for those who are interested. We do have the Trijicon RMR HD here. And you can see that the window is a little bit larger on the Vortex for sure. This one has been dropped, and it did pass our drop test. So you guys watched that video. So that is one of the advantages, of course, of the HD. Of course, comparing them side by side, this one's about double this one in terms of price point. So there is that. But there are the windows out there on the front as well for you guys to check out. Now for the again, the Defender ST, like I said, very similar in size to the RMR. It is a little bit larger for sure. Once again, though, it's going to be about roughly half in terms of price point. RMR, of course, has that bottom-loaded battery and has the RMR footprint, which is something some folks like, some folks don't like. That is up to you guys to debate down below in the comment section, which is just fine. But you'll see we do have the large buttons, same windage and elevation adjustments. However, the battery opening is different. Vortex does include a special tool to get to that rather. But in my opinion, it's kind of annoying to have it. You can use a Phillips head screwdriver to get it out. Ask me how I know. That's how we have that marring on there, because I tried to use it just to see what would happen. But Vortex does, to their credit, include the tool. But I just throw tools in a box and generally like that anyway, tools like that in a box, and generally speaking, never get back to them. But you guys can get a pretty good idea here as we are up close in terms of the actual impacts of the optic that this guy here took. And like I said, out there on the range, that optic is still perfectly usable if you actually wanted to use it. So I don't know if you guys consider it a pass or a fail. I will let you guys, of course, discuss that down below in the comments. But one thing is for sure, if I contacted Vortex customer service, they would send me out a new one immediately. That's one of the best things about Vortex, is that they have a lifetime warranty, which a lot of companies say they have. But I mean, man, Vortex they're on it. They're quick. They're responsive. And they absolutely will cover things for life, regardless of the treatment. So that certainly is a good thing. All right, so now that we have looked at both of these up close and personal, a few things to talk about in terms of pros and cons, because there definitely are pros and cons to these. One of the things that I alluded to earlier, or said earlier rather, was that it does have shake awake and it does have a button lockout feature for the buttons. It's very easy to use. I think you press and hold for 3 seconds to lock it out. So that way you can't inadvertently change the brightness settings on your optics. So why would that happen? How would that happen? So if you are just manipulating the slide, for example, these buttons are so large that it's very easy to hit one and change your brightness setting up or down in any direction. So the button lockout mode prevents that, which certainly is a good thing. The same, of course, would be true if you had the gun in a holster on your hip and you leaned up against a wall or your seat belt or anything like that. Inadvertently pressing your buttons is a real thing, particularly when they're this big. I like that they're that big because they're easy to hit, but it is a downside. Now, a downside to the system, from at least what I've found anyway, is that with the Shake Awake, again, it activates whenever the optic is not being moved for more than 10 minutes. But what happens is when it comes back on after the Shake Awake, that button lockout is disabled. So I don't like that. I wish there was a way to override that. And I think for a lot of folks, for duty use, that's going to kind of be a no-go. Now, I understand that for some folks, they're going to be fine with that. I'm going to leave that up to you guys, but I do wish that if they ever came out with a Gen 2 of these optics, they left it so that when the button lockout is enabled and the Shake Awake is enabled, the button lockout stays locked out. But right now, at least in my testing of these two, that is not the case. Now, pros of the optic is that, again, I've had thousands of rounds through both of these, and outside of intentionally dropping it, I've had no issues, no flickering, nothing like that. And I should note that a con of that is that if you look around the internet, you will see some folks that definitely did have those issues with them. Now, again, Vortex's warranty is fantastic, but seeing a lot of those report, not a lot, but more than you see with like an RMR, right? Let's just be real. You're going to see those reports out there of people having flickering dot issues. That's the main one I've seen in terms of issues with these optics. So it is kind of something that you are taking a risk at in order to save the money versus something that is going to be double the price, right? You kind of just have to understand that when you're going for a more budget-oriented option. That said, I think these dots will be fine for 99% of people out there on the market and their uses for them who are looking at them. Just be aware of the things that I talked about that could be potential cons on them, because I think not saying so would be doing a disservice, if you will, to my audience, and that's not what we do here on the channel. So there is that. Now, which one would I prefer? Which one would I use? Again, if I was using it for a duty-oriented type of gun, this one, just because it's smaller, which for a non-enclosed optic is going to make it more durable. It's just the way it works, right? We did the drop test on the CCW version of this, and it passed with flying colors. So this one, in my opinion, passed, yes, sort of, because of course held zero and is just fine and usable. But I would like to see no cracking. But, you know, again, it is a price point optic. The MSRP on this, I should say, is $449. The MSRP on this one is 599 units of measure, whatever those units of measure are where you live. Can't say prices on YouTube anymore. But of course, street price, they are going to be much less than that. And there will be a link to pick them up down below in the video description. I would feel fine using these on basically anything beside a duty-oriented gun for me personally. But again, that's me. It is what it is. Your mileage may vary, if you will, as they say. But with that, I think that's pretty much all I have for you. And lastly, full disclosure, Vortex did send both of these out for review here on the channel, but they don't get to see the video early. And in my opinion, it doesn't influence what I say. To some of you guys, you may think it will. That's what the full disclosure is for. And with that, I think that's pretty much all I got. If you have any questions about the dots, anything like that, let us know down below in the comment section. If you guys like this video and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, then you are being censored by an algorithm. Easy way to get around that is, number one, of course, hit the subscribe button both on YouTube and Rumble. And then if you have done that and you've hit the notification bell and you're not seeing those 2 to 4 videos a week, you can sign up for the email at the website here on your screen. This will get you put on 2 different lists. One will get you put on an email list, let you guys know about Screaming Deals. Basically, it typically has 8 to 10 of the best deals around the internet on optics, lights, lasers, guns, etc. And if the item, whatever the item is in the email on a given day, it's the cheapest I know of for that item. So that way it saves you guys some time and some money. Some recent ones on these particular optics. This guy was going for 279 units of measure, which was pretty good. And a recent one on this one, 209 units of measure. So those are pretty good deals. That's the kind of thing that you guys can find if you guys are signed up for the Daily Deals email and or following me on non-meta platforms. Additionally, it will get you put on an email list that goes out once a month. So that way it has all my content in it from the previous month to get around the algorithm. So that way you guys actually see the content that I am putting up. Additionally, if you think you're subscribed, go ahead and double check that, because people are getting unsubscribed all the time here on the channel without them actually unsubscribing. And lastly, before I let you go, we have an SMS service that goes out at most once a day, and it has one of 2 things in there, either a new video that just dropped or a smoking deal that is very likely to sell out. So that way we get it in your inbox before it sells out on your cell phone. So you can sign up for that at the website here on your screen, or you can just text the code to the code and magic happens somehow. I don't know how all that works, but apparently it does. And you guys will be signed up that way. So that is it. That's all I got for you. Thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.